I think we're live, but again, you just never know if we're actually live or not. So we're going to assume that we're live, and I'm going to remind you guys to make sure that Facebook is muted on your end, those of you that are speaking on the call today. So that said, welcome to Club Wealth TV, everybody. My name is Michael Hellickson. I'm one of the coaches here at Club Wealth, and super excited to have everybody with us today. Today, I've got with me my beautiful co-host, Mr. Brian Curtis. I'm totally joking. That's Cherie Benjamin. I was going to say Cherie. I love it. That being said, we've got Mrs. Cherie the Baller Benjamin. Let me tell you, this woman is no freaking joke, man. 2.5 years ago, it was her and a lonely assistant in this little teeny office in the middle of Atlanta, Georgia. Today, it's Cherie and an entire cadre of rock star agents doing. Last year, she did over 250 transactions. This year, she's on track to do over 500 units. And so that's literally nearly 10 times the production she had just 2.5 years ago. So freaking love Coach Cherie. She, of course, is a Club Wealth coach. And smart. That's why we like her. Brian, you've got your notifications going off in the background there. I'm going to hit mute on your thing until you're able to solve those. I think it's just your Outlook's open. That being said, we also have Mr. Brian Curtis, who's also a Club Wealth coach. And Brian is freaking ridiculous when it comes to production. And he also had a really great trajectory. We won't go too much into that today, but I will tell you that Brian doubled and tripled his income year over year and just continued to grow. Last year, he did over 330 transactions. He's completely out of production, meaning that his team does all the production. So is Cherie, by the way. So they get to focus on building their businesses instead of focusing on going out and selling homes, which is what their teams focus on, which is really what it means to build a business, you guys. That's exactly where everybody should be striving to be. And Brian, of course, is also a Club Wealth coach. And as you know, he is arguably the most vocal person on these calls. And so, okay, maybe that's completely untrue, that last part, but we're going to encourage him to be more and more vocal on all these calls because he's super smart and we like to hear what he has to say. So that said, we've also got Mr. Josh Zollinger, and I say Zollinger. He used to tease me because I pronounced it wrong, and he said it's kind of like saying Zollinger. It's just Zollinger, but he's not a jerk at all. He's actually a super cool guy, and Josh is from my neck of the woods. He's actually from just a little north of where I live. He's from a place called Marysville, Washington, which for those of you that don't know is a freaking hole. I'm sorry. Josh, not to make fun of the town you grew up in, but dude, it sucks. Anyway, that said, Josh found a way to pull himself up by his bootstraps, get himself out of the ghetto and down to California, where he has literally destroyed it down there. This guy goes into Ladera, which is like this high-end neighborhood, and marries this wonderful woman who happens to be Katherine Heigl's best friend. And I'm saying that because you need to tell Lisa to get Katherine to quit calling me. It's getting embarrassing. I think Tara's catching on, and we need to have her stop with that.
He had way too much coffee this morning.
Rare form, Michael. Rare form.
Just way too much.
I just joke. Not that I've got a secret crush on Catherine or anything, but clearly she needs to stop texting me. Anyway, that being said, Josh is crushing it. And in the last 3 years, he's pretty much averaged, I'm going to call it, what did you say, Josh? I think you said you've averaged about 400,000 in GCI over the last 3 years each year?
Yes.
Okay, and then all of a sudden now, Josh joined Club Wealth and has gone from $300,000 or $400,000 a year in gross commission income to literally this year he is already. What's your GCI so far this year? Aren't you over $1 million already?
So about $1 million on 31 transactions.
Oh my gosh! So you're going to close out the year at over $1.5 million, which is nearly 4 times what you did last year.
We need like some cue the Rocky music or something like, or something like that. Like,
oh my gosh, seriously.
We need like something like that to come in.
That is ridiculous, Josh. Seriously, man, almost quadrupled your income. But here's the crazy part. He's been in this luxury market for all this time. The market certainly has not quadrupled, not even close, right? And yet you've managed to quadruple your gross commission income in a single year in a luxury market where you were already doing $400,000. Josh, welcome to Club Wealth. Thank you for being here. Tell us a little bit more about you.
Okay, so I came from the metropolis of Marysville, Washington, as you mentioned, and I guess growing up and from living in some trailer parks and apartments and learned the luxury lifestyle and brought it down here to Orange County and working on that.
It's funny you say that, and listen, here's the reality, you guys. I mean, Seattle is not necessarily, there's a couple of high-end neighborhoods in Seattle, but there's not a lot, right? And certainly not in the outskirts where Josh and I are from. We both grew up rolling, correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, but rolling pennies for gas broke, right? Like, seriously, like, this is not an area known for its millionaires unless you're actually in Bellevue, which neither of us were.
No. And I remember, when I was in high school, I went to my career guidance counselor and said I wanted to go to college. And she said, "Are you sure you haven't thought about welding school? Or, you know what, if you're good at math, diesel mechanics is really good." And so.
Wow.
So those were my two options. I did go to college. That's where I met my beautiful wife. And after a short stint up in the Bay Area doing accounting work, I had clients down here in Southern California. We came down here, saw the sunny, beaches, the nice sand, the beautiful weather, and fell in love with it. And we've been down here for about 15 years now.
That's awesome. So do you regret not choosing to go into diesel mechanics?
There's days. There's definitely those days.
I love it. Okay, so people are hearing this story, right? And they're hearing, okay, here's a guy that literally went from $400,000 a year to $1.5 million in a single year in a luxury market that he did not grow up in, did not have a big, huge sphere of influence in, just literally came in cold, and you've developed a massive business. So talk to us about, besides the obvious, I joined Club Wealth Coaching and that helped. Obviously, that made a big difference. But besides that, like, what are some of the things, whether you learned it from Club Wealth or otherwise, what are some of the things that you actually did to make that happen?
That's a great question. I would say, and even, I guess, reflecting on myself, I also, in helping other people, it helps me understand kind of what I did. I would say, I have people try to do open houses for me. And there's times I'll have a $2 million open house and I'll ask an agent, "Hey, I've got a few open houses going on this weekend. Would you hold it open?" And it's interesting to me, the reluctance of some people to hold, I can't hold a $2 million house open. I don't know what to do. And they get very uncomfortable with the idea of talking to people that might have a little bit more money than they do. And so I would say that the first thing that I learned early on is just to have the confidence. You have to have the confidence to talk to people. I think that, to me, it helps seeing them as an equal, seeing them that I'm there to help them. If you have, maybe if you don't know what you're going to ask, or if you're at an open house, write a couple of questions down and be able to have a conversation with them. And to me, that confidence makes a huge difference. I don't care what car you pull up in. I think, Michael, you and I had talked about this. I mean, I'm kind of between cars right now. My last 3 listings, $2 million, $2 million, $3 million, I pulled up in a 2006 Honda Odyssey minivan. So
I love you talking about, baby. So I love a minivan.
You know what? And I don't care. My clients, they don't care. I come in.
What they say when you pull up, they're like, "Sexy man in a minivan."
That's what I call my husband.
So, just that confidence, I guess I can pull off the minivan swagger there.
Dude, there's no question. You and Timothy Oliphant, right? Like, I can see both you guys in the minivan. That's awesome.
No, so so that's, and we'll talk about my other car again in a little bit. But I would say that that's helped me out quite a bit, just having that confidence. Also, in terms of working with people, we know time is money. I feel like when I talk to people with more money, that their time is more valuable. So just being a little bit more concise and talking to people, getting to the point, rather than this elaborate story, excuse, or whatever. Hey, here's what happened, and just give it to them straight. And I feel like they appreciate that quite a bit.
Yeah, that's huge. That's you.
So,
Go ahead,
I
Brian.
love that, Josh. You know, it's interesting. Shout out to Garrett, who's Garrett Panettiere. You know, Garrett, I coached for a long time, and he used to tell me about his 2.5 and 3.5 hour listing appointments. And hopefully you're watching, Garrett. But, you know, here's the thing at the end of the day is I tell people this all the time. They're not meeting with you because they need a friend. They've got friends. You know, and that works on both the buy side and the sell side. No one decided to look at houses this weekend because they thought Josh was a guy they wanted to hang out with. I mean, and that's not an offense to Josh. That's not an offense to anybody on this call. People meet with us because they want to buy or sell a house, which means they want that process to be efficient, professional, and effective. And I don't care if you're selling a $100,000 house or a $10 million house. And I'm going to guess that you may have sold some of those $10 million houses, and you can speak a little bit better to it. But people are people. If you're professional, on time, act like you're doing, I'm going to guess that it really doesn't matter significantly. And I would love to hear you talk about that. You know, what's the cheapest house you sold this year? What's the most expensive house you sold this year? And the difference between those two clients. And I think people will be surprised is there's probably not much difference. So
I would love to hear that. Please talk about that.
Okay, so in terms of, yes, clients this year, so 31 transactions. And of course, I've got my numbers here, as my coach would want me to have.
Good job.
So low end, it's actually one that just closed last week, 690,000.
Oh my gosh, you're working the ghetto now.
So
hey, if you've ever tried to find something in Ladera Ranch in the sixes, which I once looked in Ladera Ranch, it's not very easy to find something in the sixes.
Was that a mobile home or a condo?
It might have been a mobile home.
So Josh, how big was that house? So you got a $690,000 house.
That house, that was actually it was a fixer upper. You know, the people who bought it ripped all the bathrooms, kitchen, floorings, you know, redid everything. That was about 2,000 square feet, detached home, but alley parking way. So there's, you know, no driveway. And so, you know, done up, it's like a $760,000 home.
There you go. So just perspective for everybody on the call, I pulled my numbers. My highest sale this year is $595. So.
But I love it. And it was like 10,000 square feet on 100 acres.
I don't know. Eric sold it. So, but so very seriously, and what's your highest? What's the most expensive house you sold?
So the highest, let's see, I think I even have a little picture here. So here's a brochure of this property.
Oh, that's a hole. Okay.
It's a foxhole.
Exactly.
So, but it's about an 11,000 square foot lot. This was, here's I guess a front of the property there.
Mm-hmm.
This was 3.925 million, about 8,700 square feet, 6 bedrooms, 10-car subterranean garage. I mean, there's about $500,000 into the home theater in that house.
Okay. So here's what I want everybody to hear. What's the difference between that client who bought that, or, you know, who either bought or sold that house, and the client who bought the house for $690? Any difference?
Let's see, both 2 legs, 2 arms. No, there is a difference in working with people. And I guess I'm trying to emphasize, we are working with people, but just their mentality is different. When you're looking at $690,000 here, or even if I were to split it up into 3 segments. So the first segment being kind of a standard home, $1 million is a standard price home in my market. Upper end would be double that, about $2 million. And luxury is the kind of $3 million and above.
Okay.
When you're dealing with the luxury, they don't need that house. You know, a standard price home, $1 million. You're looking for lodging. You're looking for a place to live, place to be with your family. $2 million. You know, it's more discretionary. It's not relatively not a lot more. And, you know, there's a lot of professionals in my market that can afford a $2 million house. $3 million, $2 million, I work with a lot of attorneys, you know, just professionals, executives at companies. But at $3 million, you're working with somebody who's had either born in the right family, I work with a lot of those, or they've had some sort of event in their life. They've sold a business. took a company public, or they've had something where they've reached that level.
Okay.
I mean, on that property at $4 million, the buyer came in, they paid cash for it. And he's a pretty down-to-earth guy, but when we go through and you're going through the inspection period, part of that inspection period was him bringing his Ferrari over, making sure it cleared into the subterranean garage.
Of course.
And so you got to make sure that the Ferrari fits. And just so it is a little bit different. Like I said, you have to really have just that confidence, and just when you're speaking to people, I don't always know the answers, but you know what? Let me check on that. I'll get right back to you. People really look to you as more as an advisor.
Here's the real question I'm asking for you, Josh, and I apologize for not being clear. But the people, I understand that they have more money but they're just people, right?
Yeah, no, they're just people.
And that was really kind of my point. $1 million in my market, we've got $1 million listing right now. No one wants to buy it, but we got $1 million listing. But the guy who owns it, he's a regular guy. So that would be the equivalent of a $3 to $4 million listing in yours, but he's just a nice guy. And I think that people get intimidated by someone who's made too much money, or made a lot of money, or born into money. Here's the thing. I heard somebody say this one time, is that whoever you are without money, you're just more of the same with money. It's a multiplier. So if I'm a nice guy and I make $50,000 a year, and then I make $500,000 a year, I'm just a nice guy with more money. And if I'm a jerk and I make $50,000 a year, I make $500,000 a year, guess what? I'm a bigger jerk. So anyway, I'm just putting that out there because I love the fact that you don't seem to care who it is. You're going to do your job. You're going to be professional, and you're just going to help people. You're going to consult with them. And I love that. And my question would be to a lot of people out there, why aren't you consulting with your clients? Why does a guy have to make $2 million a year for you to treat him in a way that's consultative? I don't know why. So I applaud you, is my point. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking now. Go ahead.
So Josh, I got some questions for you. So let's talk about when your shift happened, and what was it that shifted you from lower end to $1 million and higher? Like, do you know what that defining moment was when that shift happened? Was it a big break? Was it a decision that you made? Did you change a habit? Like, what was it that made that shift for you?
That's a great question. No, I think for me, in listening to Club Wealth and coaching, and just learning to leverage myself a little bit better. For the most part, all these years, it's been myself and my wife, Lisa, kind of helping me where I needed, going along the track. Lisa, we went to BSM in November, and that's kind of where things started. And she came and she understood, you know what, Josh, you need more help. Josh, we need to, work together to really make this happen. And that was my whole reason of joining Club Wealth. Was it's great. I have a comfortable living, making a few $100,000 a year, and I was actually pretty content doing that, but at the cost of working 80 hours, 90, 100 hours in a week. And when I talked with her, I was like, you know what, I'm going to die if this continues. We need to figure out, either we need to make this work, or I need to stop, and we need to figure something else out, because we're surviving, but it's really not working. And so, so going through, listening to my coaches, started with Sunit, now working with Mike and Long, and just, Sunit was, Josh, get an assistant. Josh, get an assistant. Every phone call, Josh, did you get an assistant yet? And that last year, I tried getting a couple of assistants. It didn't work. I've got an excellent assistant now that's been able to take a lot off my plate and allow me to focus on the money-making activities. So out of my 31 listings, actually, I broke it down to, I wanted to see what I'm doing, or where my business came from. So I guess on a side note, I am working on building a team. I am working, with Ylopo and Realtor.com and doing other things on the team. None of these numbers reflect any of that. This is all just my production, and mine and Lisa's. So of my 31 closings this year, 8 of them have been from open houses.
Nice.
There's another group that posted this week, or has anybody ever had success at an open house? And I'm going to tell you, yes. I had one. I remember she came into an open house. Somebody from Oregon. We got talking Northwest, Oregon, Washington, having a conversation, and let's see. And I mentioned to her, and another conversation at open houses it's always kind of fun. Is, you know, I have 5 kids. People, whoa, you have 5
Whoa,
kids?
go figure.
Must
5
be
kids.
kids.
Welcome to the club. That's why we see eye to eye on that minivan.
Yes. And so I started talking to her, and you know what? And she went, she liked me, and actually followed up with me before I followed up with her. Said, no, I'm going to come back out, look at some more homes. I want you to show me some homes, you know, like a week later. You know, a $2.2 million purchase from an open house. I showed her homes for one day, and she loves her house, super excited to be here. Was talking to, you know, just knowing about the schools. She was considering kids to private schools. So there's some private schools nearby. That's why she was going to come here. And I just said, you know what, you're going to come here, you're going to hit the end of the school year. Give the public schools a try. And she did. She loves it and thinks I'm, you know, the greatest guy. I get texts and stuff from her all the time. From open house, but we did 8 transactions from open houses this year. And so, I guess, while we're talking about open houses, so I guess some people have asked me what maybe I do at open houses. I feel like, especially on the higher end, going and having the sign-in sheets right when people walk in, you know, you're going to get Mickey Mouse visiting, and people aren't going to be authentic. They're put off by that information. I know, you know, Michael talks about, you know, holding people hostage and not letting them in. I have a much gentler approach on that. And my goal when I go to open house, I try to have one just sincere connection with somebody. When they walk in and I talk to them, I find out about them. You know, I'm talking about the house, and, you know, yes, there's, you know, built-in fridge and, you know, pool in the back, but I'm getting to know them. I'm trying to see how this house may or may not work for them. And by the time I go to open house, I get pretty bummed when I don't have a sincere connection with somebody, but I feel like that's the best way. When somebody's at the end of a conversation, like, hey, here's my information, please help me out. I'm looking for a house. And so I would say that's something that I've done, I've worked on for years. Lisa, she is awesome at it. I think we had 2 closings last week that happened from one open house that Lisa did, you know, 2 $1 million purchases that happened from one open house. And so open houses have been a big, you know, 8 transactions, you know, probably representing, you know, somewhere along the lines of, you know, $16 million in transactions from that. 6 of my closings have come from past clients. We're working on getting we need to start having more events. I need to repent and get those done, the client events. But we have, you know, we do reach out to our past clients. We do some drop-offs. 5 of our transactions have come from our sphere of influence. You know, 5 kids, you play a couple of sports, you know, you get to know a few people. 4 transactions came from referrals. And then we have 1 lead or 1 transaction that came from marketing, which I can talk about here. 1 was a signed call, 1 was just answering the phone. The marketing, I haven't done a lot of direct mail marketing, and that's something we're working on. The marketing, I like to call it my $7.3 million box of chocolates. And so, so I had a client a couple of years ago that was looking for a specific home. Josh, this is the, you know, the floor plan we want. This is the style we want. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go out and find it for you. So I went, Lisa and I bought like, I don't know, 20 boxes of seized chocolates and put notes and dropped them off at those specific homes. One second. And it's funny, you know, my kids at school, like, yeah, your dad's the candy man. He drops off chocolate at our house.
Oh boy.
I heard it from a few different sources. People got the chocolates and everything. And I had one call where the guy's like, hey, you know what? Anybody who drops off seized chocolates knows what he's doing. You know what? I'm going to keep your number. And sure enough, about 2 years later, I get a phone call from this guy. And when he moved, he showed me my business card and wrote Candyman on there, taped it inside of his desk drawer, and that's where it stayed for 2 years until he was time to sell. So I sold his house. That was $2.15 million. I got a buyer that actually came to the property through some Facebook marketing and bought the property. Then I also got to list their property. So it was a total of $7.3 million of transactions, all because of a box of chocolates.
So Josh, what I'm hearing is this: you went to BSM, and after BSM, you and your wife made a decision.
Yes.
You made a decision. You reluctantly, or you went through a few to find the right one, but then you got an assistant, and then you started doing the work that it takes. So what I want a lot of people to hear is that it's not rocket science. It's a matter of doing what you're supposed to be doing every single day in order to get there for that to happen. Now, I love the box of chocolates. They would probably melt where I'm at, but I love the box of chocolates. I love that. But when you go through it and you look at what you've done, so obviously you are still keeping in touch with your sphere. You're still doing the things outside of just the things that we teach. So what happens that I see a lot of people do is that they get going, they get a new lead source, they get something different, and they gravitate to that, and they forget their past clients, they forget their sphere, they forget to make those phone calls, they forget to do all of the little things that you still have to do. When people get an assistant, sometimes they feel like they can just sit back because they have an assistant, instead of the assistant is leverage. That's what the assistant is there for. That assistant is there for that leverage in order for you to grow even more. So good job on that.
Thank you.
So, one of the things that's striking me on this call that I think is very, very important, and there's a couple of questions, and maybe Brian and Sharif, you guys could look for some of those questions in the chat, and we'll make sure that we get those answered, you guys. But one of the things that's striking me that's very, very important, a lot of people look for, how can I find that one way to go out and sell 1,000 houses? Or how can I look for that one way to go out and sell whatever your big number is? And here's the reality. It's not about finding one way to go out and get 30 luxury sales in 7 months, right? It's about finding 30 ways to get one sale in that luxury market, and really just hitting all of those 30 ways. And that amounts to a lot more business down the road. What also strikes me is it cracks me up because you just hit the nail on the head when you're talking about open houses and agents' concerns about holding open houses on luxury properties. And every time I talk with agents about this, the first thing they say is, oh, my sellers won't allow me to do an open house on their luxury property because they're afraid people are going to steal their stuff, or they're afraid of whatever they're afraid of. But they always blame it on the seller won't let me. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Man up, right? Like, put your big girl panties on and get the seller to freaking do what they need to do, right? Your job is to sell their house. So what I want to know is, how are you getting those luxury sellers to allow you to hold open houses? And again, you guys, 8 transactions this year alone that resulted from open houses on luxury properties. So Josh, tell us about that.
So I've had homes that, that has been a concern. Well, Josh, it's a big house. It's a lot of things. I had a lender and his assistant show up, and somebody's in the basement, somebody's in the backyard, on the main floor, and we just kind of have stations. We've done that. I would say another type of open house we've done is on my $3 million listing a couple of weeks ago, we did a sunset open house. Hand-delivered invitations to the neighborhood, did social media marketing for it, used the client and her database, private schools, kids in schools, and had her invite her friends. The homeowners were there. We had food. I set up live music. We had an event. Had a good turnout. Still working on a potential lead from that party, but that was something that we did that was different. On the big house that I sold, that's actually the 3rd transaction I've had on that house, the 8,700 square foot house. When I had it,
meaning the 3rd transaction you've gotten from that one house.
I helped buy the house, sell the house, buy the house, and sold it again. That was 4. And so
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's a lot of cash right there.
And so, but with that, and so I was having a difficult time selling that before. So, and so I went through, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to sell this house? The seller's getting anxious to get it sold. And we sold it before we executed on it, but we had partnered up with a not-for-profit that was going to share their database with us, a shared open house. We're going to have a huge casino night there, have some professional athletes that were going to show up and their friends, and have this big charity fundraiser. And anyways, I'd already, had a lot of the things set up and was very anxious to do it. And then that's when the buyer came in and we sold the property and didn't get to execute on that. But there's a couple of different things. If you're trying to get people in homes, the homeowners are leery. There are ways to work with them, I think, to make that happen.
So I got a quick question for you on that. Why not still hold that open house on that property, even though you had the buyers, already lined up? Why not go ahead and still hold that open house and just accept backup offers?
Well, we were looking at doing this event, and it was like there's like $800,000 on wood floors there, and the homeowner was already pretty nervous about it. So he was worried about the damage and things that would have happened. So I would have loved to, but we didn't end up doing that. Gotcha.
Okay, good. So the open houses are huge. And Brian and Sri, if you want to get to any of the questions that are in there before I go to my next question in the chat, did you guys pull those up? Okay, while you're looking for those, another thing that really struck me is that one of the biggest differences for you this year in going from 400,000 in GCI to over $1.5 million in GCI in a single year was hiring an assistant. And that sounds super simple, you guys, but I really want to key on this and write this down. Those of you that are watching right now, write this down. If you don't have an assistant, you freaking are one, right? Like, you guys have to understand this. If you don't have an assistant, you're doing $16 an hour tasks, or in Josh's market, $30 an hour tasks. I'm just joking. But you get the point, right? You're doing tasks that are far beneath your pay grade, and you need to stop doing that. So, and Josh, the other thing I heard you say about that was, you went through multiple assistants before you finally got to the right one. How was that process?
It was tough. I did use Wise Hire, and I was able to, I would say it's just overwhelming from the get-go. When I posted on Wise Hire, I think I had like 75 applications in like 10 days. And so here it is. I'm looking through all this. I remember my first time through, I was like looking up everybody's social media, looking up everybody's, trying to figure out who these people were and like investigating. It's probably spending, 5 to 15 minutes on every single person. And it's like, I don't have time for this. How can I hire an assistant? I need help. I like need somebody to hire help to hire my assistant. I was just overwhelmed. And then listening to some of the things on Club Wealth and just different ways, okay, to go through and have people kind of self-eliminate. That definitely helped out quite a bit. Having people, responding, having people respond to some questions, leave a voicemail, and it was crazy how much that narrowed things down. So, first assistant, I was trying to hire somebody from outside the industry. Somebody had I can teach somebody real estate. I tried hiring somebody with marketing experience, but I found out that, for her, she thought she's going to be on Facebook 30 hours a week and not have a lot to do, and realized that, hey, this actually is a lot of work. Second assistant was great, but she had small children, and just that was too hard. And finally, the assistant I have now, 20 years in the business, she's has a broker's license, has a lot of experience. Through Club Wealth, we hear all the time, hire for personality, not for skill, and I got both. And so that's been tremendous in being able to, in terms of me growing and looking forward, to have somebody that agents can go to, ask questions to, without having to help me down all the time. And you said you use Wise Hire for that? Yes. Okay. And we love Wise Hire. For those of you guys that don't know Wise Hire already, check them out. I'll put the link in the comments here, but definitely love Wise Hire. Sheree, looks like you've got one of the questions.
I do. Good old Coach Mike Benier. Love Mike Benier.
What's up, Mike?
Hey there, Mike. He's got a great question. How are you attracting luxury clients?
That's my good looks, right?
It's with the minivan.
But what sets you apart, right? I mean, like, what's your USP to attract them? What are the, what is causing that to happen?
So the USP, I'm working on those. There's actually one I've heard, I've actually used twice this year on deals that probably wouldn't have happened. For a total of like 4 transactions, where if you don't love the house in the first year, I'll sell it for free. Actually, I just used that this last week to keep a buyer under contract, and it's the right house for them. That's a USP I've heard on here. I should probably use a little bit more, but I would say what's attracted to people to me in the first place, I guess I've done a lot of transactions in my area. And one of the things that kind of be memorable, if you go back to the picture here, you notice something in that picture.
Ah, I love it. It's the car, baby.
So when I'm not driving a minivan, that's what I drive around. And so, I mean, I've had people literally like run out in the street and stop me, and people know the car before they know me. And so, in all my listings in the garage somewhere, there's usually a little picture of the 57 Chevy. And so people have put that together like, dude, that the guy with the car is the one that sells the homes up here. And I open houses, people walk in, that client that came from Oregon, she goes, I've been researching Ladera Ranch, been looking here for a long time. What's the deal with the car? Why is it everywhere? And that's your car, right? And makes for a great conversation, especially at the open houses. That was my initial thing, was to park that at the open houses. Everybody walks in, they're like, hey, does the car come with the house? I hear that probably 9 out of 10 people will ask me that same question. But guess what? It gets a conversation going. Hey, for the right price, it can. Or people talk about their dad's having it, uncle's having it. It's a conversation icebreaker that's helped out a ton.
Okay, so I want to jump on this for a second, because brand marketing is so important when you start getting to this level. And the fact that you have your car, and it's a super cool car, right? That's why and it's not that it's a super expensive car. It's just a very unique, very cool, classic car that people can appreciate. And because it's in all of the pictures for all of your listings, it gets recognized, right? You've got this picture, and then you've got the red car, right? And the red convertible, and everybody recognizes that. And that becomes a part of your brand. I saw a guy in Seattle did something similar. I say similar. He was a waterfront specialist, and so he had rubber duckies, and it was kind of dumb, right? He was the rubber ducky guy, but at the end of the day, freaking, like, he would do stuff like he would hold an open house, and he'd put like little buoys out around the property, and he'd put thousands of rubber duckies in the water. And so people would be driving by on their boats, and they'd see the rubber duckies, and it's like, oh, that must be the duck guy. And dumb stuff like that, right? But here's the thing. People got it. Like they started to associate with him. So all they had to do was see the freaking duck, and they thought of that guy, and they thought real estate, and they thought he's the guy that sells all the houses here, just like your car. So my challenge for the people watching here is, especially those of you that are in luxury markets, figure out what is that thing that sets you apart. And that is kind of a USP, right? And it's not really a unique selling proposition, but it's definitely something that's unique about you that gets people thinking about you. And if you're especially in a luxury market and you're not doing something like this, what the freak sets you apart, you guys? What's different about you? Why in the world would anybody think about you instead of the 3,000 other agents that would love to sell properties in that neighborhood? Find something you can do to set yourself apart in a positive way, not in a negative way, because there's plenty of that, right? But Josh, kudos to you, man. The freaking red car, no joke. That's genius. I love it. Sheree, I think you had something you were going to add. Or
no,
maybe not. Okay, go ahead.
It was Brian.
Go ahead, Josh.
Oh no, I was going to say, so that car, and when I've had the car now for 8 years, and it's amazing to me. I had a client that was a CEO of a public company that was a referral to me, and I was all nervous. They're flying in on their Lear jet, and I needed to pick them up from the airport, and I'm like, and so I went, and I'm like, I don't want to go pick up this guy and his family in my Chevy and drive them around looking at we're like $15-20 million homes in Newport, and so I called a friend up, like, dude, I'll get your car detailed, pick up his S-Class, picked him up at the airport. We drove around Newport in his S-Class that day, and during the day, my car came up. I showed them a picture of my car, and they're like, next time we come back, pick us up in the Chevy. And so I think the Chevy has helped me. And when I bought that car, 8 years ago, 2010, I was just coming out. I'd had a Honda Accord for years, and I was like, no, I need a car. I just want to keep people guessing. I wanted people to, I could pull up to a house and like, dude, does this guy have millions of dollars, or is he flat broke? And just keep them guessing. And but using my car has definitely helped that quite a bit. So next time I take them out, we're pulling up into these $15-20 million homes in my Chevy. The agents are like, dude, that is so sweet, and loved it as well.
So tell me something. What is the difference in selling, or should I say, how are you selling luxury real estate? So your listings, you get a listing in, and what are you doing differently on a luxury property than what you do on, let's say, a $600,000 property? And I want you to talk also about, is it more expensive to market this luxury property? Because we see a lot of things where people are spending thousands of dollars on their luxury properties versus on a non-luxury property.
Now that is an awesome question. And it reminds me, I don't watch I don't watch TV very much.
Whatever that show is with that Josh, that other Josh, the Josh that wants to be like you.
And so, but I remember I watched one episode, and then where these two agents went in together, and they're like, "Hey, let's go in on this together, and basically we'll split the cost." When you work with luxury properties, like I said, to me, I love high end, like double your market value. Those are homes that are more liquid, just and easier to market than luxury. When I was planning that big event for that listing here on 5 Foxhole, when I ended up selling that house, I had $30,000 in expenses. Whether online, I had it, front cover, magazines, luxury magazines. These homeowners, that's it. They're asking the same question. What are you doing for me? I go through and I leverage some different marketing channels where my listings are put in, let's say the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and just I try to get it out there. But I would say, to me, there's marketing channels, and I guess I kind of got off there a little bit. But in terms of getting the house ready, I mean, what's the first thing that you see? It's the images. I'll tell you that when you get the houses ready, and that to me, that's the key. So when I go, let's look. Sorry, I've got some props here. I'm not sure how often you guys have props on the show, but I was thinking about this. So here's a house that was listed. This house had been listed it's been listed multiple times. It was actually just listed with one of the top agents in the whole country, and that was their main picture. After letting go of that agent, they interviewed 6 agents that I competed with, and I got the listing. And so I went in there, and when you go to these listings, you really have to have a plan. You really need to study the properties, understand the market. And I mean, I crunch all the numbers, but ultimately I usually don't even get into the numbers. I just go in and try to answer the question. Everybody wants to know what's in it for them. How are you going to help me? And so I went to that listing, and I went and told them, guess what? You're going to have to spend about $30,000 on this house. You're going to have to come in here. We're going to have to change the landscaping. This house has been empty. You need to stage it. It's kind of dated feeling. Let's go through. Let's stage it, make it a little bit more modern. So I went in there with a very clear plan. It's a Tuscan house. And they said, one of the other agents were like, okay, you need to paint the cabinets white, put some Carrara marble in there. I'm like, no, that's not the house. This house is Tuscan. You can't change the kitchen and change the whole house or it'd be off. Let's go in here. Let's do some paint. Let's do some landscaping. So just to give you an idea, again, sorry for the props, but that was their listing photo. And this is what I did.
Dude, I have a feeling I can guess where that came from. Did anybody help you with that photo? Where did you use a service to enhance that photo at all?
No.
You didn't. Your photographer literally caught it with the sunset just like that.
So in terms of what, I guess, what's my USP? I guess maybe I'm answering this now. What do I do for these people? You know, these people, they said, Josh, we hired you. You had a plan. You came in here, told us what we needed to do. We had an idea of a budget. I went in and I executed with my landscapers, my painters, stagers, and got the whole property done. Because ultimately, in terms of the marketing, what do people see 93% of the time first? They see the photos. So I make sure that my photos, and when I get my photos done, I mean, there's so many even professional photographers that would go out there and this is a 5,700 square foot house. They'd probably shoot that in less than an hour. My photographers, they're there probably 5 or 6 hours. And there's photographers out there that will go through and they take about 10 different images with different lightings and different flashes in there and Photoshop them to get like a magazine quality photo. So all of my photos are all, so once the house is prepared and, all the way through, I, pressure wash, windows cleaned, everything, perfect, because I feel like you only have that one chance to make that, that first impression. And then I go through and I do excellent photography. And then, and I also do videos as well. And that kind of the sleepy videos with the elevator music, I try to do a little bit better on the videos, including drone photos and video as well. And so I'll spend a couple $1,000s just on the media side of getting these homes. And then, I just showed you the front pages of these, but these are, I'll get really nice brochures that will go through and showcase the house. And it's amazing to me how many people, like, 1 or 2 years after a listing, they'll come to the open house, they'll have this flyer, they'll keep it in their drawer, and it's a marketing piece. I mean, I go and I do include a call action number on this to track in case somebody does call. But for a lot of people, this is a marketing piece that they're going to go through, and I'm sure a lot end up in the trash, but I do know people keep these, and so that's part of what I do to market my properties.
So I got a question for you. So let's back it up a little bit more. So not in reference to what you do right now that you've gotten into higher than $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. Let's go back to the very first one. So that very first one, that was your first luxury listing. How much do you think you spent on marketing? Because we have so many people who just need that first one, and I want them to understand, or at least have some sort of a ballpark as to what that first one might be like.
I think that my first one, it was a short sell. Actually, I still did some professional photos, but
love it.
I did a good job. And know what? For a short sell, I got a lot of money for it, and that attracted one of the neighbors that said, "Hey, if you got $1.3 million for that piece of junk short sell that had squatters living in it and handled that, you can handle my listing." And then from there, it just went on and meeting people and talking to people and lots of open houses. But in terms of, I mean, let's say people getting in their first one now, what would it cost? I mean, I guess what's changed with times a little bit too is, again, kind of that Pinterest effect or Houzz or, Instagram, just the images are so, kind of those perfect images everybody wants. So, I mean, you don't need to spend as much as I do on video and photography, but somebody getting in, spend at least that. And then, do open houses, do Facebook promotions. You can get it done a lot cheaper now than you could back when I started.
Well, and one of the things that we like to use and we recommend is a company called Box Brownie, and I'm actually typing it in now. I can't remember our link. If Tara or Aubrey could add our link in here for Box Brownie, we can actually get you for virtually nothing. You can take a typical photo of a house, and it's like $1 or something like that, $1.40 or something like that. They'll make it look like that Twilight shot that Josh showed.
Yeah, Box Brownie does a great job. I use them, especially, let's say when I do get these. I had a listing here that was $1.2 million, and did it look that great? I sent it to Box Brownie. I had them virtually stage the key parts of the downstairs. I spent, probably on the virtual staging, it's a little bit more expensive. I think I spent $300 or $400 to get the house done up, but the photos look amazing compared to when people walked in the door. They're like, hey, what happened? But you know what? You have to get him in the door, and that's what it took. And
that's our job, to get him in the door. Absolutely.
And that was actually one of my, I said I had a 3 sales. One was a marketing piece, the chocolates, and one was a sign call. And that was a Sunday, 4 o'clock. Hey, I went to all the open houses today. Can you come show me this house? I sent Lisa over there, and we got it closed, and he'd seen the pictures online. So it worked.
I love it. And so you guys, seriously, remember to take baby steps. It's not, and I'm hearing Josh say this, I'm hearing Brian, and I know Sheree would say this too, that it's not about how do I sell this, luxury property. It's about first, how do I get the listing? Then once I've got the listing, then I've got to figure out how do I market it properly. Then it's about how do I get traffic, right? First, I need to get phone calls. Then I can go from a phone call to an appointment. Then I can go from an appointment to a potential sale. But too often we go right from, I want to go from, I got this listing to I'm gonna sell it right now. And people forget to take those baby steps in between. It's like going on a blind date. I always compare this to the blind date, right? You don't walk up and knock on the door and, hey, you meet this date for the first time and you go try and make out where they're on the porch right then and there, right? That's terrible. Like, you would never do that. Buy her some freaking flowers, take her to dinner, take her to a movie or something, bring some value, then take that next step. And Josh is doing that. He's not saying, look, I'm just going to throw it on the market and hope somebody sells it. He's saying, look, I'm going to go through a process. I'm going to have a plan for how to sell this house. And people in luxury expect that. They expect that you're going to have a plan walking in, and you're going to know the difference between a Georgian and a freaking Tuscan. And if you don't know the difference between the two, then guess what? It's over, right? You've got to know, because they're a much savvier client. It's not that other clients aren't savvy, but people that operate at that level are clearly either intelligent or just super lucky. But most of the time it's because they're fairly intelligent. They got there for a reason. They expect you to be fairly intelligent as well.
That's right. You go on those listing appointments and you over prepare. And that's what I like as to what I'm hearing that you do, is that you over prepare for it, and then you go with the flow of it, but you over prepare for it first. That would have tossed me out. That would have kicked you out of my house if I had a Georgian and you came in and started talking about making it contemporary. I'm going, what is he talking about?
Yeah.
You just want me to spend $30,000 for no reason. So know what you're talking about. Research it, do the homework. Beforehand. A lot of luxury is doing a lot of the homework beforehand. And think about it, guys. It's the same thing if you're selling a $200,000 house. You still need to do the homework beforehand.
Right. So the biggest thing that I've heard today, Josh, and I know we're getting close to the end here, but the biggest thing that I've heard today is you do all the things to make it really, really a good experience for the seller. You're taking better pictures. You're looking at their house. You're researching. You're being professional. Here's the thing, guys. And if you don't hear anything else today, and I hope you heard a lot of good stuff from Josh, the biggest thing that I heard is he does it the same every time. Even when he's got a crappy $600,000 house, he still goes and takes good pictures. Or that $1.2 million house, that's a little below what he likes to sell, but he sent those pictures over to Box Bounty. He got them virtually staged. So here's the thing, you said it cost you what, $400 to do that?
Yeah, well spent.
So here's the thing I was telling somebody yesterday. Think about this. You're marketing a $400,000 or $500,000 house, and I know, Josh, you can't even. I guess maybe you could buy something that burned to the ground for $400,000 in your market. But if you're marketing a $400,000 house, you're asking the seller to pay you $24,000. Spending $400, is it really inappropriate? I understand, you get down to, 100,000, 50,000, that you can't spend that kind of money, but anything over a couple $100,000, again, we don't think about it because we only think about our half. We're like, oh, I only made, I'm listing a $200,000 house. That's a $6,000 commission. No, it's a $12,000 commission, and it's your job to market that. Do you really feel like we should get paid $12,000 to put the house in the MLS and take pictures with our iPhones? So I don't care if you're listing a $200,000 house or a $2 million house. do what Josh is doing. And he goes above and beyond, and he thinks about people, and he's a professional. And, I really applaud you for that. And the reason that you can go in and make over $1 million in GCI in a market that you've been in for just a couple of years is because you go above and beyond. You sell a crappy short sale and you got 3 other sales from it. People are going to look at what you're doing and why you're doing it. They're not just, we have to be different in a good way. And again, I applaud you for that, Josh.
And you have to be authentic. So, and that's what he is. He's still authentic to himself. And so his clients resonate with that. You don't come in just like this sales doggy reeking of all of that. You're authentic to yourself. One of the things I want to make sure that people hear when you first said that you can't get anybody to hold your $2 million house open. Well, I mean, Sheree would hold your $2 million house open. Why? Because Sheree would want $2 million buyers. So when I did the math, 25% of your business right now has come off of open house, and it's August. It's August because you're holding the houses open. So if you want to sell $1 million properties, go hold some $1 million properties open.
Definitely.
All right, so we got to wrap it up. Before we do, Josh, final thing I'd like to ask of you. People say, well, Club Wealth's all about building teams, and it's all about production and doing tons of transactions. And here's a guy, Josh Zollinger, who literally in the last 12 months, he went from 400,000 in GCI to almost $1.6 million in GCI in 1 year since joining Club Wealth. And so what I would ask you, Josh, what would you say to those people that say, well, I'm a luxury agent, so Club Wealth's not the right fit for me because I do luxury? What would you say?
You know what? I mean, there's so much of this. It's systems and processes. And that's something that we're going through and still refining and trying to get down. But it's leveraging your time. So if you're in Club Wealth, I mean, it's just done so much for me and helping me realize that and pushing me to get the assistant. And I've got, Mike now telling me, Josh, you need to, interview 5 people a week. We need to get the team built up and I would say, doing the same thing that I'm doing right now, I'm going to be able to help a lot of other agents do the same thing. And I think I'll be able, to do a lot of good for real estate around here. It's one house at a time with my team. But definitely Club Wealth would apply. And you can go through and, there's a lot of emphasis on production. And yeah, hey, I would love to get up to some of the numbers that Sheree and Brian have here in the luxury market. I mean, there's agents that do it. So yeah, I look forward to continuing to rise here at Club Wealth.
I love it. Final parting thought on the download. You prepared a download for us. What are people going to get when they go to clubwealth.com/Josh Zollinger?
No, I went through. I gave my 4 C's of working with high-end luxury clients. Just give you an idea of just working with people. I said there's still people, but I handle people just a little bit different on this end, on the high end. Not always, but just and just kind of reaching to their personality types. And then also I went through and did I think a 5-point checklist here. That's kind of what I do to get a listing, talk about my listing presentation all the way down to open houses and events to get those luxury homes sold.
I love it. All right, guys, we got to wrap it up. We got to get to our coach's call. Thank you, Josh, so much for being here. And Sheree and Brian, of course, thank you as well. Very eye-opening. What a wonderful episode of Club Wealth TV. So have an awesome day, everybody. Remember, inside each one of you is a luxury beast just dying to get out. You got to choose to unleash that beast. So go do something world-class today. Figure it out, but take some kind of action. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.